Ever realize how no one pays attention to neighborhood rules until those rules start biting back? I'll never forget the morning the police cruisers rolled up in front of my place. Not because of the flashing red and blue, but because of the stillness that came with them. That heavy, buzzing silence, like the pause before a roof gives way in a blaze. And believe me, I know that sound better than most. I was standing barefoot on my gravel driveway, steam twisting up from my coffee, an old fire and rescue sweatshirt hanging loose on my shoulders. My toes weren't numb from the chill. They went numb from the expressions on those officers' faces, and the woman across the road poised for her spotlight moment. She stood there like she was about to dedicate a statue to herself. Clipboard tucked to her chest, pastel blazer crisp, sunglasses oversized enough to make you think she expected photographers. Then she pointed straight at me and announced, loud and clear, "That man is trespassing on HOA property." She delivered it like a line she'd practiced in the mirror for years. The younger cop, fresh-faced, uneasy, checked his notebook and said, "Sir, we received a complaint about a squatter refusing to vacate this lot." I lifted my mug, still foggy from sleep, and said, "If this is trespassing, I've been committing a crime every morning for 6 months." And the way Claudine Mercer, yes, that Claudine, the HOA president, glared from across the street, you'd think she just captured the most wanted man in Maple Hollow. I set my mug on the hood of my truck, due sliding down the paint, and grabbed the folder by my steps. Inside was my deed, stamped and sealed by the county clerk, creased from being handled. I passed it to the older officer. He studied it carefully, then exchanged a look with his partner. Across the road, Claudine's shoulders stiffened. For the first time, doubt flickered across her face. Maybe she'd moved too fast. After 2 decades in fire and rescue, I learned how to steady my heartbeat when everything's blazing. It's not the siren that rattles you. It's the quiet right before it starts. As the officer turned my deed over in his hands, I kept thinking, she really had no idea the land she claimed control was mine. So imagine you're in my boots. Your neighbor calls the cops on you in your own driveway. You laughing, or are you seeing red? Name's Mark Reeves, 52, retired firefighter out of Tulsa. Spent 20 years charging into burning buildings while everyone else ran the other way. Hauled people out of attic infernos. Cut children free from twisted metal. One Christmas Eve, I stood ankle-deep in runoff water spraying down a warehouse stacked with melting plastic. The smell still clings to my memory. 5 years ago, my wife passed, and suddenly the city felt unbearable. Sirens, radios, endless motion. I wanted stillness. That's all. So when I found these 4 acres just beyond Maple Hollow Estates, it felt like breathing clean air after hours in smoke. An old barn leaning a little to the left, fence posts worn with age, a driveway shaded by an oak tree that had probably seen a century of seasons. It was perfect. I picture myself crafting furniture, maybe teaching my son to weld again, maybe just listening to whine through leaves instead of alarms screaming in my ear. That first month smelled like fresh-cut lumber and diesel fuel. Rain softened the earth under my boots. It was calm, but suburban peace is fragile, just a lull before an HOA decides your problem. 3 weeks after closing, I got a white envelope. Welcome to Maple Hollow Estates Homeowners Association. Gold lettering, glossy pamphlet inside. I flipped through rules about paint shades, mailbox dimensions, even weight limits for dogs. I chuckled, poured another cup of coffee, and fired off a polite email. Appreciate the welcome, but I'm not part of your HOA. Figured that would settle it. It didn't. Soon a white Lexus began cruising past my gate morning and evening. Blonde bob, designer sunglasses, phone always angled for photos. Claudine Mercer in the flesh. At first, I thought maybe she just liked the scenery. Then the letters started. Gentle notes about my landscaping, my gravel driveway, the fence. Been standing there since Jimmy Carter was president. I ignored them. Surely this was a misunderstanding. But people like Claudine don't believe in misunderstandings. They believe in leverage. They circle, sniffing for smoke, then shout fire whether it's there or not. Next came a certified envelope, gold seal, official violation notice. My fence and my gravel driveway deemed non-compliant. Remedy within 14 days or face fines. I actually laughed. The fence predates the HOA. And the gravel? The county never paved this road, and the HOA sure didn't either. Folks think firefighters chase danger. Truth is, we chase purpose. We head toward heat, because someone needs us to. But there are flames you can't extinguish, like cancer. That's what took my wife. After she was gone, I kept putting on the uniform, hoping that sense of mission would come back. Eventually, I realized the smoke had followed me home. So I sold the house, packed what little remained, and bought these acres believing quiet would fix everything. I learned something. Peace isn't the absence of noise. It's something you defend. 3 weeks in, the tone shifted from friendly to threatening. Another envelope. Failure to comply may result in lien action. If you never face an HOA lien, know this. It's their favorite weapon. It means they're not just pestering you. They can bury you. I felt that old tension in my chest again, like lying awake at 3 a.m. waiting for the alarm bell. Only now the blaze wasn't in the building. It was sitting in my mailbox. Soon neighbors started giving me space. At the hardware store, at the gas pump. I became the outcast, the supposed rule breaker. In small towns, rumors sprint, facts crawl. One night, I spread 2 maps across my kitchen table. The county's official survey, stamped clear, and the HOA's version from their website. The county map stopped cleanly before my driveway. The HOA's map shaded my entire property blue, labeled it common buffer zone. That's when it clicked. This wasn't clerical. It was a quiet land grab. I started documenting everything. Opened an evidence binder. I've seen enough blazes to know when someone's about to strike a match. You can tell plenty about a person by how they hold a clipboard. Claudine gripped hers like a judge's gavel. She parked her Lexus half on my grass, teed it up in heels, measuring my barn with a map on her phone. That structure isn't approved, she said, sharp as broken glass. It's a barn, I replied. Been standing longer than either of us. She snapped a photo and informed me that all outbuildings must follow Maple Hollow paint codes. I'm not in Maple Hollow. I said evenly. Her smile was thin and cold. Everyone says that in the beginning. Over the next few days, I heard stories. Neighbors fined for tricycles left in driveways. Ordered to repaint doors because the Navy was a wrong Navy. People claimed she protected property values, as if policing mulch color was economic strategy instead of intimidation. I wish I could say it stopped with me. It didn't. Before long, Claudine started arriving with backup. A guy in a tucked-in polo, Bluetooth blinking in his ear, clipboard clutched like a badge. They circled my mailbox, paced off my driveway, murmuring like they were assessing a national security threat. I stepped outside and asked if they needed something. We're documenting community violations, she said smoothly. You're having trouble with that, I replied, because I'm not in your community. She handed me a printed map. My lot shaded blue again, but the date was off. No county seal. No recording stamp. Cute, I said. Did you make this yourself? For a split second, the composure cracked. I'd be careful how you speak to me. And I'd be careful where you're standing. I said evenly. That side of the fence belongs to me. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the oak, I thought about how people like Claudine always drift toward authority. Firehouse, PDA, cul-de-sac, it doesn't matter. They chase control because chaos terrifies them. And nothing unsettles a control freak more than someone who doesn't answer to their whistle. Soon the pressure shifted from letters to visits. A zoning inspector appeared one afternoon, apologetic, clipboard in hand. Anonymous complaint. Of course. I walked him through the barn, let him poke around. He scribbled a few notes, then leaned in and said quietly, happened a lot in HOA areas. Some folks can't mind their business. He handed me a yellow slip. No violation found. Down the street, Claudine's Lexus idled, engine humming, watching. 3 nights later, just past midnight, I heard tires crunching over my gravel. Headlights washed across my yard, paused, then vanished. The next morning, another envelope taped to my mailbox. Red letters this time. Final notice. Non-compliance constitutes trespass on common property. I unfolded the maps again. Now the HOA's common buffer cut straight through my kitchen. This wasn't ego anymore. It was fraud. New binder entry. Incident 3, false police report. By then, I understood the strategy. Every bogus citation, every slow drive-by, every anonymous complaint was bait. She wanted me angry, sloppy, loud. But I battled invisible fires before. Paper doesn't intimidate me. Still, you can't beat paperwork unless you know the rules behind it. So I called Sonia. Years ago, I'd carried her mother out of a house fire. Back then, she was a college kid. Now she was a property attorney. She showed up in a navy suit, calm as winter. I spread the binders across my kitchen table. 3 police calls. Fake plats. An HOA president who thinks she's a prophet with a clipboard. She flipped through the documents, paused at the county plat, tapped the corner. They filed a version of this, she said, but it's not stamped. If it's not recorded, it's unenforceable. She traced another line. And this mismatch? That's a state statute violation. Knowledge nugget number 1. Within a week, Sonia had pulled county records, meeting minutes, archived emails. Claudine's signature was on every unrecorded revision, every altered boundary. Turns out I wasn't alone. The Torres family had been fined $7,000 over a treehouse. Mrs. Keene had a lien threatened because her rose bushes encroached. Roses planted before the HOA even existed. Same pattern. Pressure, silence, payment. My porch became our command center. Neighbors showed up one by one with folders, stories, copies of fines. Miguel the landscaper brought evidence that Claudine had edited meeting minutes after votes were taken, deleting objections, rewriting decisions. She's rewriting history. I muttered. Sonia called it digital arson, destroying records so no one could prove what really happened. We installed cameras, backed up everything. Every letter, every flyer, every midnight knock went into the cloud. When someone keyed Miguel's truck and splashed white paint across my old red Ford, we didn't explode. We documented. She wanted fireworks. We handed her files. The real turn came when Sonia secured access to the HOA's financial records. Missing funds. A lot of them. Consulting payments routed to a company Claudine owned. Community enhancement, fees all funneled to the same account. $160,000 gone in 18 months. Not sloppy, criminal, but the sharpest edge was buried inside the loan paperwork. A clause. In the event of default, the lender could foreclose on HOA common property and all governance rights attached, which meant if the HOA failed to pay its balloon note, whoever bought at auction would own the HOA itself. So that's what I prepared to do. It wasn't simple. My brother Caleb fronted part of the money. Sonia handled the bid. 3 weeks later, under a flat gray sky, I stood on courthouse steps bidding against 2 investors over a bankrupt board. Final bid, $691,000. The gavel struck. And just like that, the man the HOA tried to erase now owned the HOA. The next morning, Claudine stormed up to my fence, eyes wide, voice shaking. You can't buy a neighborhood. Ma'am, I said calmly. Apparently I just did. For the first time, I saw it clearly, rage tangle with fear. Now she was the one standing where she didn't belong. Court wrapped it up. Sonia presented forged plats, altered minutes, siphoned funds. Claudine's attorney stumbled through excuses until a county detective entered with a warrant. Embezzlement and fraud. The click of handcuffs echoed through the courtroom like distant thunder. After months of drought, the judge dissolved the HOA and transferred the assets into a community trust run transparently by the residents. No cheers, just a long collective exhale. These days, I sit beneath the old oak each evening, coffee warm in my hands. The air smells like rain and sawdust again. The neighborhood's less polished, more alive. Kids ride bikes without fear citations. Mrs. Keene brings pie to meetings. Sonia helped push a statewide reform. No secret fines. No boundary changes without public notice. Miguel sometimes drops by with a beer. We talk about fire, how it destroys, yes, but also clears ground for something better. I came here looking for quiet. What I found was purpose. If you've ever been shoved around by someone wielding rules like weapons, remember this. Paper doesn't own people. It never has. Sometimes it just takes someone willing to read the fine print and light the right match. So tell me, have you ever gone toe-to-toe with your own HOA? Or someone who valued regulations more than neighbors? Where's the line between order and abuse? And when does standing your ground stop being rebellion and start becoming justice?